Hey guys, welcome to another track guide. This time we're at Algarve. First I'll show the Hotlap, and then we'll get into the track guide itself. So for turn 1, I'm aiming to brake before the 100 board, with before that white line associated with it, and I go down to 4th gear. You can use 3rd gear to get a little more rotation if you feel like you need it, but I found 4th gear to be a bit more consistent for me. And then I aim to turn in right before the 50 marker. On exit here, keep the right side, at least the right side tires on the curb. Just be mindful that when you're getting back onto the racetrack itself, the car might snap on you a little bit. This curb, it does unsettle the car a little bit, so just be mindful of that. And then here, I begin braking when I straighten the wheel of the car. I found that to be a pretty good reference. You can also use the white line on the left side there, if need be. So you don't want to end up on all the way on the left on the exit of the previous corner, because you're just going to really compromise your exit for this left-hander. So I'm trying to bring the car back over to the right. You don't necessarily have to bring it all the way to the right. Just as long as you're a decent bit over there, you can get a decent exit out of this corner. I do a small lift. It's not really necessary. If you get the line right, it can be flat out, but a little lift's not gonna hurt you too much. Again, keep the left side tires on the curb here. Now, this hairpin, probably the hardest corner for me personally here, because there really isn't an accurate reference point for braking here. What I found worked for me best was when I begin to see the whole track ahead of me, like once I'm kind of over this little crest and I begin to see the road kind of open up more, that's when I start braking. You can also use the green at the right side here. You can brake before that. You can also use the cones on the left side. I mean, you're just gonna have to experiment, see what works best for you. So yeah. Try to get a nice, late apex here. You don't want to try to brake, too hard, since you're going downhill here. It can be pretty easy to engage the ABS. And then on exit, just keep the left side tires on this curb. So here, right at the white line that's associated with the 50, I'm getting off the throttle and I'm just using a tiny bit of brake to help settle the car into the next corner. And then for this corner, I'm using the white line on the left here. That's when I begin braking, and I straddle this red and white curb to help open up the radius a little bit more. This is another tricky section of the track. Once again, there isn't too many clear braking markers, but what I use is when I begin to see the horizon open up, when I begin to see the trees and the land there, that's when I start braking. Initially, I brake kind of light since the car is going over this crest here, and the car is a little more on the light side. So initially, I'm braking soft, and then as the car is completely over the crest, I start braking a little harder. And you don't want to end up all the way to the left because it'll just take way too much time to get the car back to the apex. So I'm trying to keep the car like in the middle here. There's a lot of compression in this left-hander. It's easily flat. So you don't have to bring the car all the way to the right. You can kind of stay in the middle or even a little bit more towards the left. Although sometimes if you are too far to the left, the car can get a bit loose on you, so just be aware of that. And then here I'm braking probably about 10 meters before this white line on the right. And for this long right-hander, I'm braking before the grass ends on the left and where that red begins next to the curb. You don't want to brake too hard here because you're going downhill and the fronts are already pretty decently loaded, so if you brake too hard you can lose the rear. And I try to turn in a bit early because the exit of this corner has a kind of an increasing arc, so you can get on the power a bit earlier than you think. I'm just trying to follow the curbing around it. Yeah, as you can see here, I do get a little oversteer here, and I lose a bit of time trying to correct that. That's not ideal. I just got on the power a bit too early. Make sure you keep the right side tires on this curb here. And for the final corner, once again, make sure you have at least the right side tires on this curb once again. And I start turning in once I get to the white portion of the curb there that kind of looks like a triangle. I line up the car with that as I turn in. And as I'm approaching the curb here, I do a small lift, about a quarter to a third of a lift. You can hug the red and white curb a little bit. It can pull you in. And then my cue to get back on throttle is there's a bit of a bump there, and once the car settles back down over that bump, that you can get right back on the power after that. And that's the track guide. I hope you guys found this helpful, and I'll see you next week.